Alright guys, welcome back. Central Florida Prepper here. Today we're going to go over one of the basic traps in the survival situations, the number 4 trigger, Deadfall. It's real simple to do. I'm going to do the step-by-step with this. You'll be surprised, actually. I've talked to many people that's never set one, never cut the notches and things like that. It's very simple, very effective. It's good against small animals, squirrels, rabbits, large rats, field mice. You know, there's a lot of debate about whether or not you can eat the rodent population, mainly because like out in Arizona and New Mexico, a lot of the desert mice and things like that actually still carry the plague. The actual plague. I did a video on that back when I first started this channel. But we'll go ahead and go over the trap anyway. You know, that's a survival situation. You'll eat just about anything. So let me go ahead and show y'all how to make this one up, and I'm looking forward to doing other snares and traps in future videos. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so first thing I did is I went ahead and found me a nice piece of wood here. This is actually just a sapling I chopped down. It is still green. Some people don't like using green because green has little flecks in it. As long as it's large enough, it'll work just fine. It's not like you're putting 100 pounds on this trigger. Alright, you're only putting a couple pounds. So yeah, doesn't really matter what size. This is just a really straight one. I like as straight as possible with the triggers. Just makes it disperse the weight a lot easier. So there's many tools you can use. For my personal, I like using a saw. This is just a Ozark trail saw. Works very nice. That way I can cut up my sections that I need out of this piece, and it's nice and clean. Of course, you can always use a blade. Just depends on what you have available. If you don't have a saw, can you still make a deadfall trap? Absolutely. Alright, you can use rocks and shave your grooves. It takes longer, but it can be done. There's many ways you can do this, guys. It's very simple. So let me go ahead and start quartering this up, what we need for our base, our trigger, and our fulcrum, and we'll be good to go. We've got a sapling here. Now, our first piece I want to do is the fulcrum piece, the angle piece that sits on top of the figure 4. You want that to be your stoutest stick. That's going to be holding the most weight. So I went to the base of the sapling first. They don't have to be very big. I'm thinking for this set right here, I'm going to start here. So you know what? I went the length of the blade on this one. Alright, it doesn't have to be that big. It can be very small. Get up here so you can see the camera. Alright. Now, for the top, the main base, you want it close to the same. I'm going to make it just a little bit shorter just so it can keep the two separated. The reason why you want that first stick the thickest because you've got the most notches coming out of that. Alright, now we need a trigger. For the trigger, I'm going to move down, further down the shaft here to the thinner piece of wood. Let's go and start back here. Go and chop that off. Alright, and let's go ahead and go about that far back. That'll work. Alright. So, we have 3 pieces of wood here. Alright. We got 2 fairly close, 1 shorter. Let's do it this way. You got your trigger right here, that's the longest stick. You got your fulcrum, that's the next largest. Then you got your base, that's the shortest. Alright, so let's go ahead and we're going to start trimming our notches and everything that we need to start this trap. And that way, when it's all said and done, we will have our figure 4. Alright, so this is just a little bit longer, a little long for this. Alright, I'll probably trim it back to about here, so it's not as long. But we'll see when we set it up. There's always some things you got to trim a little bit. It's better to have too long than not long enough. Let's start with the base of our figure 4 trigger. Now, all you have to do is worry about this end for right now, the top. Alright, we're just going to cut an angle on both sides. Basically, it looks just like, comes up like a point. Alright, you don't worry about making a complete point. You just trim it down 2 sides so it looks like a wedge. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started on that. This is a very large knife for this little stick. I keep checking my angle because I don't want to go too far past middle on this. Or turn it around and do the exact opposite on the other side. Alright. And then when you're done, you should be pretty well uniform there. Okay? That's simple. Now, right quick, before we move on to our next piece, or our next cut, I went ahead and modified this just a little bit. Alright, on one side I got a little bit longer length on the cut compared to the other. Alright, this here is a longer length. This one here stops up here. There's many ways you can do this, guys. This is not very difficult. I'm going to show you both of these, alright? The reason why a lot of people like that long length on one side is because when you have your stick up here notched in, when it comes to collapse, it completely clears the stick. Alright, compared to the other side, see how much difference that it can still hang up in your notch? So a lot of people like to do it that way, so it actually comes out further up when it's triggered. That's up to you. Both work. So I've never really had an issue having both sides the exact same. But, you know, in this situation, I guess you really want to make sure it works every single time. So a lot of people trim back on one side a lot more than this side, just for the clearance. When this trap gets set, and by the time it gets down here, it's already popped loose. Alright guys, so now we're going to go ahead and work on this main piece here. Alright, usually you want about 2 inches from the end, so keep in mind, usually from your tip of your finger to that first crease in your finger is close to 1 inch, since we don't usually have a tape measure out there with us. So as long as you double that up that much is where we're going to start our notch. Now you can just use a knife, but I like carrying my saw, especially for things like this. Now when you start this, you don't want to go all the way down through this into the hardwood, because the center of this, you don't want to go past center, alright, because that's going to be a weak point in this. You just want enough in there that you're going to take out just to make a notch, just to grab that trigger. Alright, now once that is peeled back, you just take your knife and start notching this out up to where you cut with the saw. Hopefully that is picking up for you guys. I do apologize if it don't. Let me get a little closer here. Hopefully that is in view. And you always want your notches really clean. Makes it move a lot easier. Alright. I'm going to peel this one back a little bit more. So there we go. Very simple. That way, when you set this up, it catches. Alright. We got a trigger. Part of it anyway. Next I need to shave down the end. But this has to be in the same notch angle as up here. So the easiest way to do this is to set it up just like this. Set it on the ground and stare down it when you start your first notch. You're just going to start it up here to begin with. Not going all the way, just to start skinning. You can start modifying it later. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so again, the base. Got our top piece here. I'm basically looking down here, keeping pressure up here so I can see it. Alright, that's going to be our skin right there. Alright. We'll look down on these, okay? When you're doing that, you want to look down, verify that it's still coming off the exact same angle, because you want all your angles coming off together. Alright, starting to look good, so let's finish this up. Now we're going to flip this over and catch the back side here and try to mimic the exact same cut on this side here. Try to keep the angle the same. Because we don't want, see how this slightly larger on this end, thinner on this side, we want that about the same. So we just keep working it, tweak it a little bit. Because you want that to operate as smooth as possible. Alright, much better. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and go over what we got so far with our trigger. Make sure I've got this turned the correct way. Alright, so we've got that so far. Now, this is going to be our trigger stick. Okay, so as you can see, the length is way too low. So we're going to bump this up and redo this cut here. We're going to cut it up here. This way our trigger's a little bit higher up off the ground. Alright, and we're going to go back a couple inches and do this notch on this trigger stick. So first thing we do, we're going to trim this back. So took that much off. Alright, now again I want to go ahead and grab my base and make sure that we do our cut as straight as possible down the top side. Alright, double check. We are good. Okay, so this is looking much better. Alright, yeah, that's definitely looking much better there. So we're going to put our notch in this. Go back a few inches, kind of eyeball. You could do 2 inches. Close to. Alright. Now you want this trigger as clean as can be, this notch. Sorry guys, I had to take a break. My legs were falling asleep sitting out here. It takes a little bit longer to do when you're videotaping. When you're recording, videotape, yeah. Who uses videotape anymore? When you're recording, and I do apologize for that dog over there barking again. I don't like it when people leave their dogs out on chains all day long and they're raising Cain non-stop. Obviously there's something wrong. But, so let's get back to this, alright? So we've got our base. We've got our fulcrum. And we've got our trigger stick, okay? Now, I want to get close to a 4 as I can. About right there. Looks relatively good. So I'm going to take my thumb and mark my stick where I want this thing to grab at, alright? Now, on the back side, you see how I've got the notch up top? I want to put a notch on this trigger stick back here on this side. That's going to catch. Alright? Now, when you do the notch as like this, except reversed. Okay? So this tailing is going to be facing that way. Alright, so it's going to be just like that, right there. So, keeping my finger there, that's roughly 90 degrees from it. That's why I like having as straight as sticks as possible. You don't want to go too deep in this trigger, but you do want enough to catch, alright? It's not real deep, but you want it to catch. And then we're going to trim this back. Hold on, let me get the camera, guys. I want this just a little bit more than the other feathering on the angle. Okay. Now, it will work catching this end. Alright? That's what we want. We want that to catch. That way, when we have our trigger set, with the weight up top here, it's going to catch. Alright? Hopefully y'all can see that. Get it up here on my knee. Alright, so we're going to put a weight on this here. Alright, and then it'll try to catch. So, now, since I got the catch right there, this is where I'm going to try to flatten this bigger piece out to get that to fully catch. Let's go ahead and set up our base and trigger again. Alright, so we've got where it's catching. Give me a second. Kind of hard to do with right there. Alright, so we got where it's catching at, but this base is round. So what I want to do is find out where it is. Alright, that's center there. Just put my thumb on it, and I'm going to trim this back, not the face. I'm going to trim at an angle and leave a strip right in the center. I'm just going to make it so that it catches a lot easier. Alright. I do both sides. You actually only have to do one side where it's going to catch at. But, I don't know, OCD or something. I just want to flatten it out a little bit so that trigger catches a lot easier across the face of this. Alright, looks like I need just a little bit more on the trigger itself. Not a lot. Alright, now let's see if we can see that there. See how we got that? Now let's set this back up right fast. Alright, so I need to square that end up just a little bit more, because I still want to slide past. And that's quite alright. Just take your time with it. You want to notch that face. Not really notch, you just want to square it up so that trigger catches better and doesn't roll off the edge. Much better. Alright. But you want to test this thing out. The best way to test it is to just apply pressure up top. You want that to hold. So I need to take a little bit more of both the trigger and the base. Like that there. Alright, that's what you want. Now, what I try to do with these triggers is I'll set up again and I'll round this down here so the trigger slides easy and doesn't get hung up. When it gets set. That way that notch slides easy. Once it's set, it'll just slide down and not get all wrapped up. we've got our pieces. Alright, 3 pieces. Now we just need to find something to set this with. Usually stone works best, big old flat piece of rock. That way you have more surface area to actually catch something when it falls. Alright, so we got to find our piece first before we find out how long this trigger is going to be. So I think I'm just going to use something for demonstration, maybe a 4x4 or something like that, just to put the weight on so I can show you how it sets off. Because I don't have any wide stones or anything like that. You can use logs. You know, the whole Deadfall thing was, I believe, was with logs. Stone works very well. Big old piece of slate or something like that. Anyway, you want something with a real wide surface, so when it falls on the animal, it's not really crushing the animal. What it does is makes it so they can't breathe. They wind up suffocating. Is actually what happens. So, yeah, gruesome way to go, right? Survival is a real, you know what. Now, some states you can't be setting traps. Just to let you guys know that. Now, a survival situation is completely different. But out playing around, just setting up traps and things like that, you might want to check your local laws first, because each state is different. Now, let's go ahead and set this thing up. Like I said, I'm probably just going to use a 4x4 over there just to get the weight on, and I'll show you how it sets off. Alright, so as you can see, figure 4 works just like this. Obviously you'd want a wider surface up here. Now if you're using something like that, the size of a log or something, I'd probably bind extra logs beside each other. Your triggers are going to reflect how much weight you got. Now if you got a lot more weight on this thing, you'd get larger sticks for your trigger. Technically this trigger right here is actually long enough, okay? Now what you want to do is funnel your game in. So on this side, I'll take rock and debris, seal this end up from the bait. Back here I do the same thing, okay, across the front. That way it has one way to come in to the trigger. Alright, so when it hits the trigger, it falls down on it. Obviously this was a lot longer 4x4, it's on the heel here, so it got a little wobble there. Now, I want to show you guys a little trick on this trigger. Very simple. Let me find the right end. Okay. I've seen a lot of people just shave down to a point. Personally, I like putting barbs on this thing, especially if I'm using meaty material for bait. I'll tell you what, the best thing for small game is peanut butter. But let's say you're using meaty material. So I will go ahead and start with a barb down, a point down, but I will barb it so that the bait stays on it. I mean, they actually have to really tug on this to get it off. So get your point on the end just to skewer your bait, alright? But you want to put some notches in this thing too. That way, once your bait's on there, it stays on there. And of course, you can just barb it all the way down. That way when you slide your bait on, it's harder for it to slide off. And like I said, peanut butter works best for your small game. So anyway guys, that is it. Alright, 3 pieces of wood. Like I said, I like to keep them as straight as possible. Best to pull off the same sapling. On your trigger, like I said, barbs is the way to go. That way when they start messing around with that, they really have to work it. And it doesn't take much to set off this trigger, guys. Alright, so again, the size of your sticks are on the weight of your deadfall. Okay, this here, I don't know, probably 40, maybe 50 pounds. Should be able to do. Of course, you can go larger deadfalls for larger games. I will tell you, you're going to be burning a lot of calories notching logs and setting up something real big to drop. But that's up to y'all. Anyway, guys, I hope this clears up the air on some of the questions on deadfalls. Hope we found it informative. Don't forget that like button, guys. There's other ways you can do this. I've seen it with paracord. I've never used it with paracord. Something I might take a look at. You know, it never hurts to look at other options. So I'll be reviewing those, and I don't know, maybe we'll make one out of paracord, guys. Alright, y'all take care, and talk to y'all later.